first of all, thank you for coming on. Why don't you introduce yourself and just let people know who you are?
My tag is Morpheus. I main Mega Man in Smash Brothers, and it's been a while since I've played, but right now I'm mainly a speedrunner online on Twitch, but I am thinking about playing Smash again. We can get more into that in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure,
But
for sure.
I was one of the top Mega Mans in the world at the time when I competed in Ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you being up at that level. You hail from the Florida region, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, I thought so. I thought so. So, the first question I want to ask you is how did you get into Smash? What was started you off?
So aside from like the very cliche I grew up with it answer, I remember when Smash for 3DS was coming out or was being advertised and marketed. I remember I vividly remember the moment when Mega Man was revealed. I was in the middle of moving houses and my room was pretty barren and I saw Mega Man just pop up on my laptop during that E3 conference and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to play this game. And at first, it was kind of casual. I was still competitive at the time, but what really set me into getting competitive was playing with one of my friends. He would play Link, and I could just not. I did not know how to deal with Link hookshot grab or pivot grab in Smash 4. So I would just get. He would run away, turn around, grab, and I would get grabbed across the stage, and it would infuriate me. So I was like, I'm gonna learn how to beat this, and that was what set it off.
As the drive and motivation for you to get into competitive.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So obviously you mentioned seeing Mega Man on the E3 conference of Smash 3DS when it got revealed. What particularly attracts you to the character? Was it because you played the games, or was it like because of his play style in Smash?
It's honestly because of the games. He's one of my favorite video game characters. I remember at the time when I started getting into it, I was messing around with a lot of characters like Shulk. I'd never played Xenoblade at the time. I thought Shulk was really cool, and I was playing with Fox because I really like and I enjoy Fox a lot. But in the end, I just stuck it out with Mega Man. He had the most time put into any character, so I decided to run with it.
So obviously when you competed, you were in like a really difficult region. You know, you had ESAM, you had MVD, you had a lot of these top level players. Like were they motivational towards you as well in improving, and like did they help you figure out like what sort of strengths you had as a player, as well as the weaknesses?
I would say so, yeah. They were definitely big driving factors, especially 8-Bit Man. You know
Mm,
him as the Rob player in Florida, in South Florida. He was my main training partner for quite a while in Smash 4 and in Ultimate too. And honestly, I don't think I would be where I am today without him. But even still, all the other competitors in South Florida were really motivating, especially because they played, aside from like MVD, they all played really difficult matchups for Mega Man. So I really had to work hard to get any kinds of results in my region.
for sure, for
So,
sure.
like, especially like Mega Man's main thing was having a really strong neutral. He couldn't really kill that easily unless he got like a ledge trump or a footstool combo. But you had to have really good neutral with Mega Man, and I think that's one of my strengths for sure. That really excel from playing there.
Okay. Well, so in contrast to that, what would you say were was a weakness that like a lot of the high level players in your region were able to like pinpoint and deal with effectively?
So I think so going even into now, I think one of my big weaknesses, ironically, is also my neutral because I become a little too over reliant and stubborn on certain options when I should be recognizing when to switch things up. Like a lot of people have always called me the pellet Mega Man. I was always really, really good with them. even like now still, I'd say. But they're not the greatest option, especially now with how strong combos are in this game in Ultimate. But I do think that's one of my bigger weaknesses is recognizing when to switch things up on the fly. Because I do have a good idea of what good game plans are, but switching it up on the fly can be hard, especially when Mega Man doesn't really have like the biggest damage dealing combos compared to like Peach or Joker or Kazuyo or Steve, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Would you say his combos, in comparison, rather than damage, help you achieve like positional advantage? Because I notice a lot of moves from Mega Man, like back air, forward air. They have, despite not being an excessive amount of damage, they have quite a large amount of knockback, and they can combo into like grabs and things like that, where you gain that almost like that positional advantage on stage. Like what would you say about that?
So a part of leading into that neutral is like one of the big things you can get if you're really good with your pellets are a lot of grabs. You're either going to get a lot of grabs on people or you're going to get a lot of forward airs. And both of those things can knock people up and away. So it puts them in the air for the longest amount of time. And you can set things up like picking up your metal blade, shooting out up airs, or even just catching their landings with like, say, an F smash or metal blade. It sets up really well for just having that advantage in positioning. And especially on certain stages like FD or Kalos, it can be really difficult to land versus Mega Man. And I think that's one of his strong points. It's not necessarily the damage he does off of off of a single hit or a combo. He can do that with things like jab lock down air, or like the jab lock down airs, right? With the Iron Fist, I think that's what it's called, that people have called it.
Yeah, I think so.
Like that does a lot of damage. Down air is absolutely ridiculous for that kinds of high damage, but I think his strength is definitely in positioning and just juggling people with up airs. Like when I play Mega Man, if I get an up air, my immediate thought is usually I'm going to take this stock right now.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so again, you've been to a lot of tournaments in your time. You've been around. You were considered one of the highest level Mega Mans for a long time at the start of Ultimate, and you were definitely one of the more noticeable ones at the end of Smash 4 as well. What would you say has been the most memorable set you've had, good or bad, and the most memorable tournament you've been to?
My most memorable set is probably the last tournament set I had versus Mutace. We played a lot in Ultimate. We didn't really play a lot in Smash 4 because we lived really far apart, so our locals were like probably an hour and a half apart. But when Ultimate came out, Mutace was able to travel a lot more to the bigger locals, and I was in that area, and we have a ton of sets throughout the game. But there is one tournament set we played at Tampa Never Sleeps in January 2020. It was game 5. It was a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favorite sets I've ever played in Ultimate.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in contrast, would you say that's probably your most memorable tournament as well, or?
No, I think my most memorable tournament would probably be another regional I went to in Minnesota. It was called Overextend. It was, and there was a lot of Midwest players there, which Midwest was filled with Mega Man players at the time. So it was a really good grind through that bracket to just get as far as I did.
Yeah.
I managed to place second in that tournament.
Oh wow.
It
Who who
was
who won? Who came first?
um so top 3 was Elegant, myself, and then Casimir.
Oh wow. Okay, so quite a stacked tournament then.
Yeah, so it was very fun.
Yeah. Um. So following on from those two questions, obviously, Smash 3DS and that has been around since I think it's like 2013, 14. So, alongside myself, you've been in the community for a long time. What would you say was like the most positive experience you've had?
Probably getting to compete in the region that I competed in South Florida. I don't think I would have stuck around as long if I had been in another region.
Yeah,
Everyone was always just so welcoming and willing to help and always just grind out games. And I don't know what I would have done without everyone, to be honest.
that's actually really nice. Yeah, I find, particularly the communities that I've been parts of as well, they're also very very welcoming. A lot of people in this community have been lovely, which is really nice to see. And very
Mhm.
different from other esports. So obviously you mentioned when you introduced yourself that you were very you weren't really playing Smash as much anymore. And you focused on speedrunning. But, so why did you drift away? What happened?
COVID happened.
Ah,
I really, really don't like playing Mega Man on Wi-Fi, especially Ultimate's Wi-Fi. It's a lot more difficult. I think Mega Man in this game is a bit more precise than in Smash 4, or at least like fighting other characters, I would say. Like you have to be a lot more precise in this game than you in Smash 4.
yeah.
And it's a lot harder to deal with on online. So I just took no part in it.
Mm,
A little bit foolish for me because I ended up assuming that we wouldn't be stuck at home for so long, but from the way I've seen online play out, I don't think it was a bad decision for me. But that's the
yeah.
biggest reason. Otherwise, if that didn't happen, I would still be here.
Were you never enticed by Yuzu or anything like that?
No, not particularly.
Mm,
I think I tried Yuzu a little bit and it just didn't feel the same.
mhm. Yeah, I get that as well. I have it installed on my PC and I've touched it like twice. So for those who've just joined, probably didn't know. What are you up to these days? Like, what's going on?
So ever since I mentioned a moment ago, I do speed running on Twitch. That's the main thing I do nowadays. I finished with school in last December, so I've been working since then. So between work and speed running now, that's what takes up most of my time.
Yeah.
But I did go to Let's Make Moves this past weekend, which was the first major tournament I entered since Big House 9 in 2019.
Oh wow.
And I placed pretty okay. I got 65th and I upset Sean, the Falcon player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I lost to Mysterica and Web JP, which is not bad losses at all. They're really good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really in touch with the scene anymore, but like 65th at a major for your first tournament back in 2 years is incredible. Really, to be honest, it's crazy good. Um, so you
Yeah,
mentioned about
no.
speed running. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to say that like it was interesting because I was very certain I've only gone to a handful of locals over the past 2 years, and I was pretty certain I had lost my touch, but it didn't seem that way, so I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Um, so what sort of games do you speed run?
So I initially started speedrunning with Paper Mario for the N64,
Oh yeah,
and I grinded that for quite a while. I was still in school full time when I was playing that game. So if I wasn't doing school, I was doing that basically, especially because I was stuck at home because of COVID and the lockdown.
yeah.
So I didn't really have much else to do with my free time. And I grinded that for a really long time, enough to get the world record in the any percent category.
Wait, really?
No lie, you can look it up.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I mad respect to you, bro. I
Thank you.
I got top 35 in Link's Awakening for the Switch, and I'm proud of that. So like, world records are crazy, man. That's crazy. That's insane. Um, so I'm gonna come into the questions from um the that have been sent to me now. So the first I've got three from Inu actually.
No
Um
worries.
the first one is have you ever felt in a tournament that everything is stacked against you, and how did you deal with it?
So I think the first moment, or some one of the most like big moments that you could feel that way for me, at least, is being in winners grand finals of a tournament
Mhm.
and being down 2-0 in the first set, because that's not ideal, because in the event that you attempt to make that reverse 3-0 and you lose game 5, you have to play another best of 5, and that's really difficult. I think that's one of the most, like, all the cards are stacked against you kind of thing scenarios I've been in multiple times.
Yeah.
um Aside from that, I can't say I get too nervous in tournament settings, especially like having been to so many locals and knowing how to deal with the pressure. But I think the biggest thing, one of the bigger ones too, is when you're playing against top players. Top players are very, very meticulous in how much and how they know how to get away with certain things and what to punish. So it really makes you feel like, especially as Mega Man, who doesn't have that much room for error in neutral, at least, like you can't really mess up that often. And when you do get a hit, you really have to make the most of it count.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, it's part of the beauty of the character, really, wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, it's what makes it so rewarding. I still
Yeah.
think he's very strong, but you have to put in the hours. But it's worth it.
Yeah. Next question from Inu is if not for Mega Man, like which character do you think people would know you for or do know you for? So like do you have any secondaries or
I think my best secondary in this game is Lucina.
Mhm.
I think she's really straightforward, not the hardest character to learn, but I she's pretty difficult to play because she's so simple. Everyone knows what Lucina's looking for. So you really have to be on top of your game to perform with her. But if I didn't play, if it wasn't Lucina, it would be probably Cloud is my other secondary. I
Yeah.
only know how to play sword characters and zoners. But
Nice.
if I had to pick someone else that wasn't those two, and if I like had to pick a character to put time into that wasn't any of those three, I would probably pick Young Link. Young Link's one of my favorite characters in the game to watch. I think he's really cool. Even though
Yeah.
he's kind of dumb with how much he can scrap up close for a zoner, I still think it's really fun, personally.
Yeah. Um I'm gonna do Redbird's question before I come back to Inu's third one. So Redbird's question is under what circumstances do you think you should pick up and use Metal Blade when it's on the ground?
Oh, it's definitely, you definitely don't want to pull it in neutral unless you're playing versus some kind of slow-paced character, something like Peach or Snake. But more often than not, if you're fighting slower paced characters, you probably want to use Metal Blade as a projectile because it's really good at covering a lot of angles, a lot of approach options from the opponent. And if it does hit, depending on how the hits connect, you can get a follow up off of it if you're close enough. Or just get the raw damage. It does 6 per hit if you don't use it as an item. So that's pretty valuable in itself, in my opinion, to mix in with like pelleting in neutral.
Yeah.
But for picking up, if you're playing against someone that's not decently slow on the ground, you kind of want to just try and get a hit in neutral before you think about pulling out Metal Blade to pick it up. The only other way you would do this though is if you full hop and throw it diagonally down to cut off an approach. I think that's really strong because you can do things like diagonal Metal Blade and land with forward air or pellet, or if you want to close the gap, you can run up and leaf shield and cancel to pick it up.
Yeah.
So I think if you're playing someone that's not slow, I think throwing it down diagonally and trying to mess around with it that way is the way to go for Metal Blade.
Okay. Um, so coming up to the last two questions, because Croco's already got answered in the general ones, is Enu's last question, which is do you have a funny anecdote or story that you could share with us?
Hmm, a funny story. If I had to pick, it'd probably be the I had in the first year of Ultimate, I had a set versus ESAM, and there was a game on Lilat where he was beating me pretty badly. Not even gonna lie, he was beating me really badly. And at some point, I was caught up high in the air, and I just mashed up B to get out of disadvantage to try and force a landing, and he chased me up, and I killed him at 0 with up air because he sprung up.
Yeah, that is pretty funny to
And
be fair.
that momentum shift was enough to get me the set.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that makes it even more hilarious. To be
Yeah,
honest,
no.
that's sick.
I don't think I've killed anyone else at 0 like that, cuz no one else besides like Falco or Greninja or Zerasu can jump that high, and like yeah, so that was pretty funny. That's probably the funniest thing I can think of for relating to the game. I don't have many like funny things that happen. More often than not, the funny things happen to me.
Ah,
I'll be honest.
yeah, that's fair. If anything bad was gonna happen, you were the person that's gonna happen to. That kind of yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people in my region always knew me as like the guy who gets clipped, but still ends up placing really well or just winning the set anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys call it over there, but in the UK we call it sod's law. So that brings me to the final question. So I'm not going to take any more questions from anybody else. Not that I've received any extra ones, but I'm not going to take any more questions. So what is one thing you would say to someone looking into get into competitive Smash or any competitive fighting game?
If you want to get into something competitive, definitely join a community that's not like exclusively online, unless it's like some kind of shooter or something, then you're kind of stuck with that. But like if it's a fighting game scene, you definitely want to try and make some connections offline because the difference is so vast. Like the online like Smash community is not the same as offline. I can guarantee that. It is.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say how toxic the online community is for pretty much any game. But if you go in person and meet with people locally, I guarantee it will be a much better time than you would have online. If you're able to find that kind of thing. I know some people struggle with that due to like where they live in, like what region they live in and such. But if you're able, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah. So I mean, awesome. That's some great advice. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It's great to hear from you again. As I said, when you first joined, it's been a long time since we've last spoken. So yeah, I
Yeah.
hope everybody enjoyed coming along. Again, if you wanna see more of Morpheus, as he said, he does speed run. So you have a Twitch channel, right?
Yeah, so I could link that here.
For
But
sure.
if there is a slight chance, guys, I don't want to make promises, but especially because work is really hectic right now and a lot of things are, but after playing at Let's Make Moves this weekend, there may be a comeback. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't want to guarantee it because I really hate doing that. I don't want to be a flake. But after playing this weekend, I was like, dang, I still am just as good as I was all those years ago.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, bro. That is really, really good to hear. All right.
But yeah, that's my Twitch right there. I stream when I can, and it's usually a lot of speedrun attempts of right now Majora's Mask.
Oh, that's interesting. I love that game so much. I got a tattoo of it actually.
It's
Um,
so cool.
yeah, but anyways, thank you again so much for coming, and talking to us for the past 30 minutes.
Yeah, no
And to
problem.
everybody else, as well as yourself, enjoy the rest of your day slash evening or wherever you may be. Thanks again.